The Thief of Time by Terry Pratchett, book review. So this is now the fifth book I've read by Terry Pratchett since I discovered him earlier this year after Going Postal, Monstrous Regiment, Interesting Times, and Night Watch. And quite frankly, I'm running out of complimentary things to say without kind of repeating myself from the earlier reviews. So undoubtedly, Terry Pratchett is one of the most talented writers alive today. Well, actually, he died recently now. He was alive at the time I read this book. He's incredibly prolific, but of course, lots of writers are prolific. But it's one thing to crank out action and adventure stories. Humor is much more difficult. So, given that humor is such a difficult thing to do, it's really amazing that Pratchett can write as much as he does and still be pretty consistently funny. And there's a lot of philosophy woven into his stories. And his stories are always really well plotted. I always like the way there's like a bunch of different plot threads, but they all come together perfectly at the end. In a previous review, I compared Terry Pratchett to Douglas Adams. This book in particular reminded me of that comparison. Thief of Time is a book about the nature of time travel, but it's in a silly way, and there's a lot of silly philosophy thrown in. And it's a kind of silly philosophy that just almost makes sense if you think about it for too long. For example, what if yesterday didn't exist? A line from the book. Does that even make sense? Or, I mean, it almost does. Another theme of the book is this kind of idea from Greek mythology of deities with human characteristics. So in this book, the world is about to end. And the character of Death, who's, a deity with kind of human characteristics, has to go out and find the other three horsemen to ride out for the apocalypse. But it turns out the other three horsemen just can't be bothered to do the apocalypse. So Death has to kind of ride around by himself and try and convince them. And then the mysterious fifth horseman of the apocalypse has gotten a job as a dairy delivery man. It's silly, but it's fun silliness. I wouldn't say this was my favorite Terry Pratchett book so far. I think I enjoyed Night Watch and Interesting Times much more, but Terry Pratchett is like Mark Twain. You can never really go wrong with him.